time for the first oil change on my DR-Z400. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things, and today I'm going to be doing the first oil change on my 2018 DR-Z400. I picked this bike up a couple weeks ago and I'm getting very close to the 600 mile mark, which is when Suzuki recommends the first oil change. I'm going to walk you guys through step by step of the entire process of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And DR-Zs also have not changed a whole lot since they first came out, so chances are if you have an older model, older than a 2018, that everything will be relatively the same. I've got all of the tools I need in front of me. I have a couple socket sets, oil, filter, drain, and of course a funnel. It would also be useful to have some shop towels or paper towels to clean everything up when you're done, and I'm not here to waste your time, so let's just get right into it. Now, the first thing to note about an oil change like this is that you obviously want the bike to be warm. I just got back from a quick ride, so the oil in here is warm and it should flow out of here very easily. I'm gonna take a 10mm ratchet and remove this skid plate or bash guard with 4 different bolts. Once the bolts are out, just simply drop the plate and then keep everything to the side for later. Now that the main guard is off, you will find the main drain plug right here. I'm going to grab a 12mm socket, move the drain pan underneath here, and remove the bolt. If the bike is very warm, you obviously want to pay attention to the header so that you're not burning yourself, as well as the hot oil as it drips out of the engine. You can see the oil on my hands here. It is not too terribly bad, and that is because the bike is brand new. It only has 600 miles on it. But one of the main reasons for an early oil change like this is obviously to get all the metal shavings out of the break-in oil. I'm going to wipe off the main drain plug, and you will notice that there is a crush washer on here. Now, typically when you do an oil change like this, you will want to replace that crush washer. However, since the bike is so new, the washer is not crushed too terribly bad, so I'm going to end up reusing this one for this change. Now that the dripping has slowed down almost to a complete stop, I'm going to make sure the drain bolt is clean and then reinsert it. 12mm again to snug this thing down, and you don't need to kill this when you're putting it in. I'm gonna go just enough to crush the crush washer the rest of the way. And of course, I will make sure to replace that after the next oil change. Now I'm gonna move the drain pan back to this 14mm bolt right here. I'm going to remove the secondary drain bolt, and this one is going to be a bit more snug than the main. Again, be ready with the drain pan as oil is still sitting in the motor. On this bolt, you will also notice a crush washer. Again, I'm keeping this and replacing it after the next oil change. And the end of this drain bolt is actually magnetic, so you may want to inspect that a little bit for any kind of metal shavings that came off of the motor. It is natural to see some metal shavings in this, especially when the bike is still in its break-in period. I'm gonna wipe this bolt down just like the rest, let the motor finish dripping all of its oil out, and then we will close it back up. Now we're moving up to the side of the bike where you will find the oil filter right behind this little door here. I'm gonna switch back to a 10mm ratchet, break all of these loose. Now you may get a little oil spilling out of here, so I'm gonna move the pan underneath here just in case. These bolts are not torqued down here very tight, so keep that in mind when reinstalling them. Now on the inside here you will find a couple things. The spring that holds the filter tightly in place. And there are also 2 O-rings, one around the outside and then one underneath the filter. It is a good idea to replace these if you have them, but again, since the bike is fairly new and these seals should remain okay, I will go ahead and replace those at the next oil change. The filter is just kind of sitting in here on top of a little knob. It helps if you have fingernails that you can stick behind there and pull it out. So here is the old filter, and then inside of the engine here, there's a little knob that it sits on and another O-ring on the inside, so you want to make sure that that stays in place. It is also a good idea to stand the bike up a little bit and drain out any remaining oil that may be sitting in there, and this is probably gonna make a mess. I'll wipe up any excess, and that's pretty much it for draining the oil. Now you could take this a step further and remove a drain hose underneath here, move it out to the side, and then pull out a mesh filter that is found right up in this area. Again, that's something that I'm not gonna do right now because the bike is so new, but I'll make sure that I clean all of that stuff out going forward. I'm gonna clean up any excess road dirt, grime, anything that could prevent this thing from having a nice seal in here. Of course, I'm gonna wipe off all of the extra oil too that has been dripping down the engine casing. Now I'll take the filter. This is a KN139. A bunch of different brands make filters for these bikes, but this is just the one that I went with. I'm going to place the hole inside around this little nub and make sure that the O-ring is still seated properly. That fits in place basically just by sitting there. Now I'm going to clean up this cap, make sure this O-ring is seated as well. If this O-ring is not in place properly, or if there's any kind of dirt in here, I will probably notice it pretty quickly by engine oil leaking out all over the place. Now I'm going to reinstall this cover. Keep note that the arrow should be pointed up towards the top of the bike. I'm going to replace the nuts and just put them on finger tight for now. Now you want to tighten these up a little bit at a time around in a circle. I don't know the exact torque specs on these, but I can't imagine it would be more than 5 to 7 pounds. So now that they're finger tight, I will put the 10mm socket back on again. Just give it a little bit of a torque down, move on to the next one, and then I'm gonna go around one more time just for a tiny little snug, and that should be good to go. Now moving up to the top of the bike, you will find the oil fill right here in the frame of the bike. This is also a dipstick, so I'll make sure to wipe that off. I'm going to insert my funnel, which I have just cleaned. Now I'm going to be filling the bike with some 10W40. This is the motor oil that I use in pretty much all of the bikes that I've owned in the past. A lot of people's opinions on oil preferences are going to be different, but for the 2018 DR-Z, the manual does recommend 10W40, and this is made for motorcycles, full synthetic, so it should work out pretty well. One thing that I should note is that you really want to make sure your drain plugs are back in place. Otherwise, I'm basically just dumping this whole thing of oil onto the ground right now. So I just checked all of the plugs and the gasket around the oil filter, and it seems like there are no leaks. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill up the rest of the bike. The DR-Z specifically takes between about 1.5 quarts and 2 quarts. So I'm gonna fill this one up about halfway to start. I'm actually gonna put 2/3 of this in. Once all of that is in the bike, I'm gonna remove the funnel, replace my dipstick now to check the oil. I'm just gonna set it down on top of the threads, don't actually thread it in. Pull it out and check the level. It is a little bit difficult to see since the oil is very new, very clean. Yeah, I would say that's about perfect. Now the last thing that I'm going to do before putting the skid plate back on is actually turn the motor on and let it run for a little bit. That way, if there are any leaks, I should be able to see them before it's too late. Now that everything looks good, I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall this plate, and then maybe we'll go for a quick little ride.
All right guys, we are out here. The bike is running pretty great. I mean, obviously it's brand new. Just a first oil change, nice and simple. I probably should have prefaced this video by saying I am not a mechanic, so don't take my advice. I'm just an average dude on YouTube who happens to like working on motorcycles from time to time. Now typically when I get a new vehicle, especially when it comes to my cars, I like doing the first oil change and maintenance, all of those routines at the dealer, because that way you maintain a service record. Cars that do not have a service record are a lot harder to sell for the obvious reasons. You don't know what people are doing to them, but I found that it's a lot easier to sell a motorcycle because typically people who ride motorcycles also work on them at the same time. And when you ride, you can tell when a bike has been used and abused for the most part. The oil change on this, I didn't think it was going to be that noticeable, but now just cruising here, it is actually very smooth. Gear shift seems smooth as well. This bike is about broken into the point where I can start riding it hard the way these things are supposed to be ridden. Man, it is chilly back here by the river. This weather is not looking too good, so chances are this ride is going to be very short. I'm actually going to pull off to the side here real quick and check the plugs, make sure no oil is leaking out anywhere real quick. There was a faint smell of oil to start because I did it kind of carelessly, and there was a little bit of oil on the header here, and as you can see, there's still a little bit of oil down here. I'm not super worried about that. My bikes are never super clean, so it is what it is. Everything underneath seems solid as well, no leaks or drips anywhere. Since this was the first oil change, I also went around and checked all these bolts, made sure that they line up. If they were marked, you can clearly see the markings on them, which I can't really see right now because of this lighting. Here you can see a little bit of the blue markings that they put on here to make sure that they're not backing out at all. So yeah, that was my first service routine of this motorcycle. One of the main reasons why I went with this motorcycle in the first place is because the maintenance and service periods on the DR-Zs are significantly lower than other supermotos that you find on the market out there. Oh yeah, I think I got the right amount of oil in there. Thanks to everyone who watched the last video, the bike unveiling, and the first couple of mods that I did to it. In that video, I asked you guys to give suggestions on a custom wrap or custom graphics kit for this bike. A lot of you guys had your head in the right place, and we were kind of thinking relatively the same thing. So I think in the next couple of weeks here, once I get back from traveling, I'm going to hit up a local graphic designer and see what they can come up with to make this thing a little bit more unique, a little more dopest vlog in the game-esque, you know? I'm trying to get in as much riding as possible before summer turns to fall and then fall turns to winter. I don't really mind riding in the fall, but I would rather get it in while it's still warm. If this damn weather would cooperate and give us some sunshine instead of rain for once, then my life would be a little bit easier. But over the next 12 days, I'm going to be down in Nashville, Tennessee. If you guys want to keep up to date with any of that stuff, follow me on Instagram. I do a lot of behind the scenes and kind of where I'm at, what I'm doing type of posts over there. Hopefully this video helps some of you out there who are trying to change the oil on your DR-Z yourself. And if you weren't trying to change the oil on your bike, then hopefully this was somewhat entertaining, I guess. Once I get home, I plan on doing a lot more moto vlogging as long as the weather cooperates with me. So if there's anything that you guys want to hear me talk about while out riding around, places you want to see me visit, things you want to know about my motorcycles or cars, anything like that, let me know in the comments down below, and maybe one of your ideas I'll pick up for a video and just kind of go off and rant a little bit while I ride around. So if you are new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe. I make new videos every week, and that's going to be it for today. So as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.